All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Jason with On the Play Games. And today we are honored by having a special guest with us, Joel Lee, Sir Bostwick of the Bothan Network. Joel, say hi to everybody.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Oh, it's so great to have you. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a video feed in, but we were able to pull in an audio for Joel, and very happy to have you here. Joel, I know we have a very limited time together. We want to cover a lot of stuff, but the first thing I really want to kind of talk about with you is, where did you start with TCGs, and what kind of history do you have with the games that we love so much with the cardboard art on them?
Yeah, let's see. I started playing, back in the day, collecting Pokemon cards, not really playing the game. Dabbled with a little Yu-Gi-Oh, and then mainly played Magic for the longest time, Magic the Gathering.
Okay, right on. Some fan favorites with the Pokemon. Gotta love that. Magic the Gathering started it all for us. The addiction started there.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
what kind of accomplishments do you have with other TCGs?
I didn't really play TCGs too, I guess, competitively all that much before SWU. I did play standard Magic the Gathering for a while back in the day, and went to a couple. I don't think there was a pro tour or anything back then, but I would go to like the local standard tournaments and whatnot. Did okay in a couple of them.
Okay, awesome. So more like on a local scene, just being kind of competitive in the your local game shop events that they were putting out.
Yes,
Okay.
our
Uh,
local store was basically more of a like limited store. I did a lot of drafting. That was what I played the most, I would say.
awesome. That is like really interesting that you have that draft kind of limited background. When I think about how you and I started really talking to each other a little bit more, was after you made it to the finals of a limited uh, PQ there at Empire Games in Anderson to lock in your 100 points and get into the Galactic Championship qualifying through the PQ system. So that's pretty cool. I do like how that kind of full circles a little bit there. Are there any other TCGs that you're currently playing?
Currently, it's just SWU, and I dabble in Magic still here and there. Really, just Commander.
Commander, the lady that keeps calling us back in, right?
Mm,
And you are a member of the Bothan Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, how you got in with that group, and what that feels like to be part of a team of players trying to problem solve ahead of the meta?
Oh yeah, the Bothan network's great. It's filled with a lot of very skilled players, and it does help being on a team to just kind of talk about the meta and deck choices, card choices, optimizations. It's a nice hive mind of ideas floating around.
I'm very, very jealous of that, to be honest with you. It's one of my goals in life is to actually be able to do like a bed and breakfast where everybody's just drafting and cranking out deck ideas and stuff before a big tournament,
Oh yeah, it's a great time.
right? Uh,
Worlds, yeah, we had a Airbnb at Worlds, and we just wake up, play cards all day. It was a very good time.
that sounds like a great place to be right before you walk into the Venetian and start trying to dream crush others. Um, one quick question. I noticed with the Galactic Championship, and we didn't discuss this pre-production here, so this is a little bit of a curveball, and I apologize. Um, the top eight, okay, every player in the top eight was 5-1 or better in draft, except for one, the player that brought the Lando deck. So a lot of those decks were pushed up by that draft record. Do you mind sharing what your draft record was at the Galactic Championship? How did you end up doing there?
Unfortunately, at the Galactic Championship, I went 1-2 in the draft at day one. Was a little disappointed in my performance there, but my opponents played well. They drafted well, and yeah, we went to game three pretty much every round, so can't really complain too much.
Now, if you can get to game threes consistently, you know you got at least some dog in the fight, right? So
Yeah.
you got to feel pretty good about that, especially when you're playing against, the was it top 600 players in the world. So that's pretty sweet. But everyone that I was looking at that was in the top eight had either a 3-0 record or were 2-1 at the end of day one's draft. So that draft aspect really did kind of push some of these decks, except for that Lando one. It really did make it to that top eight more off of its premier play than the other seven cohorts in that group. How did you feel about that dynamic of the draft and premier switch back and forth between those two formats?
I do like that draft. It's a very important part of the overall tournament for the World Championship. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, Galactic Championship, I should say.
it is the world's, right?
It's bigger than the World. It's the Galactic
Yeah,
Championship.
yeah, exactly. Um,
Um, there is some sort of a luck element also with limited, but draft leans more towards, skill, expression, reading signs, drafting the correct lanes.
yeah, and that is one thing that's a little bit different with Star Wars Unlimited is you have the advantage of looking at the leaders as open information throughout the draft. So you can get maybe a little bit of a tell in which direction the person to the left or right of you might be going throughout the rest of the draft. Because it can get pretty cutthroat for certain aspect cards as you get into like basically like I'd say maybe 4 or 5 cards into a pack. It starts getting really tight on what colors you're grabbing.
Hmm.
The reason I ask that is, do you think now that we've got Eternal, there were two Eternal opens that happened in the Galactics. Do you think maybe next year, or would you like to see? Let's put it that way. Um, a few rounds of Eternal put into the mix alongside Premiere, maybe even alongside Draft, like a 3-3-3 day one. I know it's a long day, but what are your thoughts on something like that?
That would be interesting. I am personally not too much of a fan of the Eternal format, but for the Galactic Championship, that does make sense if they want you to be good at multiple formats.
Okay, so you're at least open to the idea. I like that.
Yeah,
It was just something kind of popped in my head late night. I think it was Saturday night. I'm like, what are they going to do to us next year?
yeah,
Um, let's take a quick look at the planetary qualifiers. And I say quick look with kind of like tongue in cheek there because there's nothing really quick about it when you have as many planetary qualifiers as happening in just a week outside of the Galactic Championship. It really just kind of boggles my mind how quickly we've moved right into this season of season two. And as you can see right here, just kind of looking at the meta stats page for SWU Competitive Hub, Cad Bane is head, shoulders, and maybe waist above the rest of the field.
yeah. It turns out Cad Bane is pretty good.
Pretty solid leader there. Also, when we look at base combinations, uh, it is Cad Bane Blue really pulling that 26% there. Yellow getting some more there with the conversion rates, but 34 Cad Bane Blues made top eight in about 11 PQs. Is it a Cad Bane issue or is it, a villainy vigilance issue? Is it a single card maybe? Is there even an issue? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely do think that the red blue villain color pairing is very powerful at the moment. But that's just because of the new additions of like Merrick and Chimera, Previsla, Ninth Sister. It reminds me of when uh back in set 4, I believe, when Django, or maybe it was set 5, the start of set 5, where Django was everywhere. Like the leader wasn't good before, and then they printed, you know, 3 to 4 cards to help solidify his play style, and that's what kind of made it over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what was it? It already had Triple Dark Raid, right? So it was the War Juggernaut
Yes,
that came out.
it was the combination of War Juggernaut, IG 2000. It might have been just those two, honestly, that put it over the top.
Yeah, really just 6 cards that ping units. It's about
Mhm.
all you need, to push something over the top. And so with Cad Bane, um, what you mentioned Previsla, you mentioned Chimera, you mentioned Ninth Sister. Um, what do you feel is the card that's pushed too much? Or do you think that if you just ban CAD, does that just like fix the situation and the meta works fine from there as everybody kind of like adjusts to CAD not being there as a leader? Or, does another leader that's, able to be red, black, and blue fill the slot and, you know, the problem still exists? What do you think is the avenue there, if you have a thought on it?
Let's see. I'm not the biggest fan of banning leaders, and Cad Bane is getting to the potential like Django levels
Hmm.
of dominance. But in my opinion, I think if you ban Cad Bane, then another leader will rise to the top. In my thoughts, I think if Cad Bane is gone, Cad Bane is what's kind of holding back the Ahsoka deck.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's yeah, Ahsoka's explosiveness I think will take over the meta, in my opinion, if Cad Bane goes away.
I was also noting Director Krennic's one of its bad matchups, and I might get a chance to pull this up from Swoo Base. Like it had a really bad matchup against Cad Bane, a slightly below 50% matchup against Mando, and then like the rest of the most played decks in the meta, it was just like green across the bar. And I feel like you take Cad Bane out, and then you just like take Director Krennic off the leash, and now we're just looking at big fat bombs generated off of credit tokens. So
Yeah.
like,
Then Ramp's back in the game.
right, yeah. And Lando on one side and Director Krennic on the other, and now that there's big top end units that Villainy has, now Director Krennic can like start to shine, right?
Correct.
um, and then furthermore, we'll take a look down at the bottom here. We were talking earlier, the villainy aspect and leaders getting into the top 8 is extremely pushed into the direction of villainy. It's 63% versus 35% heroic. It's almost double the number of villainy leaders getting into the top 8 just from last week. I mean, I know it's kind of a small sample size, so to speak, but is that telling us there's something going on the villainy side? Is it, like you say, it may not just be that leader? There might be something a little bit deeper.
Yeah, that is a shocking statistic there. I just think the villainy top end is just that much superior than the heroic at the moment.
Which is kind of wild to say because, like, or to think about, because you're talking about going up against things like Liberty, which is just a huge
Correct.
space unit that was dominant all last season. Um, so it blows my mind. It's like, oh well, Liberty's 9, Chimera off aspect is 9. Instead of just tapping the unit and bouncing a bunch of upgrades, I'm just going to defeat the unit and gain some life, for the same cost. Um, pretty interesting to see that. Let's take a look at a couple of the tournaments just kind of real quick. This one was won by Piet Blue, which is pretty cool. I'm going to take a quick look at the actual deck list for Piet because I wanted to see. They are running the Chimeras. That's what I was going to look for. So we got a deck that's running 3 of Chimeras, making it to the top. And then the Armorer, which I never would have thought that the Armorer would have been in the finals.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah, the
cool.
armor is cool. Yeah. It's a cool deck.
And then there's your Ahsoka down in 7th. And then we got 5 Cad Banes of a rainbow of colors. You got green, blue, and yellow in 3, 4, and 5. And then the rest of them are capping out with the blue. So that's a little bit telling. Even though Piet took it all, it's still, Piet Blue. Then this next one, I was really excited about seeing this one. A decent sized player turnout, 54, which I would always expect right after the Galactic Championship turnout to be lower. Everybody's kind of jet lagged. But
Hmm.
you've got Luke Datavault. And I know there was a lot of talk about Luke being a possible answer to CAD going into the Galactic Championship. It didn't really turn out that way in that event. But this is an aggressive negotiations deck. It has the ability to like punch you in the face, right?
Right. And it's playing into the space lane, which Cadman does not like.
That is true. It is heavy in the space, 35 units in space. So it almost completely lane dodges the ground. And 3 of the ground units are Admiral Akbar, which they're just sacrificing that to get more space units out. So it really only has 10 uh, units that would put on the ground. At Chewbacca, take those away as well. You're looking at 7 units for the ground, and 3 of them are going to be sent to Kaz. So it's just like everything I put on the ground really has some kind of space application, right?
Yeah, I think the Luke Nadaval deck is actually quite well positioned currently. It fights space well, so it matches up well against the Vaders and any other pilot deck that you might see, the like Boba Fett. And it dodges the ground, which Cat Bane likes to be.
Yeah, the fact that it pairs up well against Darth Vader, jump to light speed, and um, right there kind of sells me on it because so many people have like jumped on the Vader train that uh, Luke Skywalker Data Vault I do think is on the rise, and it does well against Boba Fett, right? Like it did last season as well,
Mm-hmm.
at least. Um, it did struggle against the Lando lists, from my understanding, or no, sorry, it was the evolution of Obi-Wan that
Yes.
really kind of took the legs out from underneath it. So yeah, I think it is well positioned because Boba Fett's, people are playing that. They saw it do pretty well at the Galactic Championship. Darth Vader doing really well in the Galactic Championship. And at least these first couple of weeks, it looks like Darth Vader decks are being brought out and played because they are making top eights. They're just not winning. And, you know, I have a showcase Vader I want him to do great. Don't get me wrong. But I do think it's a trap. I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a trap. Next up, we've got the Curico Chile. And this one, we've got Cad Bane taking it all. The Data Vault list with Luke Skywalker from Ash being the one that I'm kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Nice little mix there. Then we've got a fair amount, 25% of the top 8 with the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian list, uh, this one doesn't jump into the lane of playing Chimera, but I believe the other one does.
The real question is how many cards are they playing in the main deck?
Oh yeah,
These Mando Colossus decks get kind of crazy.
there's 54 right there,
Yeah, 54
and
is not too bad.
this one's 53. So they didn't go crazy with it, but at least one of them was putting Chimera in their list, along with I think it may have also had the Previslas. Let me just take a look. Yeah, I also had 2 Previslas. So this
Wow.
is that heroic splashing villainy cards, kind of angle to taking on an event. And that could be a little slight tell as to where the fix needs to be. I am glad to see a Grand Admiral or Admiral Thrawn yellow.
Mhm.
Uh, I felt like he got the most out of the set, like kind of just like at a glance. But then it turns out he really didn't come out and play for the Galactic Championship as well as others. What are your
Yeah, I'm a little
thoughts?
surprised by that actually, but I think the Grand Admiral Thrawn decks run into the same problem that the Piets and the Krennics run into. Is if you're playing a lot of Cat Banes, you have to play against No Glory, and No Glory is very bad against it, or very good against that deck, very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Stealing away those when defeated triggers uh, tends to hurt a deck like Grand Admiral Thrawn, right?
And
And
that's
then
the kind of the problem with the Krennics and the Piets. Like if you play against anything that's blue, all they have to do is hold a removal spell for the thing you ramp into. And if you get your first big thing or your second big thing removed back to back, you basically ran out of gas.
yeah, that is a good point. Even those these go big decks are still out there going big. Um, Cad Bane or other blue red villainy leaders or lists can still tap into those no glory only results and kind of ruin your day when they just like, okay, I'm just going to spot removal that. Thank you. You spent three
Yep.
turns building that up. I built my board out and hit you for 5-10 damage, and I just went ahead and took out your one big threat that you put out. Thanks for playing. you know,
It gets worse too when they cited like direct hits because now they're doing it for 4 instead of 5.
yeah, and that is a great card that kind of went into hibernation for a little while there, and I'm glad to see it coming out again and um, being able to kind of fight that fight that it needs to do. It's we have a need for spot removal that's not unit based. If that may sound a little crazy, actually, if I've said it, maybe we don't need more spot removal, but we definitely have unit based spot removal, which is absolutely wild right now to be kind of feeling like we're playing old Spark of the Rebellion.
Oh yeah.
Um, this top eight includes a Boba Fett, and it also has a couple Luke Skywalker data vaults. So it's really cool to see Luke in both of his renditions making it into this top eight. The next top eight that we're looking at is Sao Paulo, Brazil. And this looks like a more diverse meta, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything in this picture.
There's even a Piet Lake country, which um, I don't know what they had in the water down in Brazil when this guy put this deck together, but I want a sip of it.
That's pretty unique right there.
That is wild, right? Cad Bane again, though, taking it to the top. So, you know, kind of leads to that argument. Maybe it is a Cad Bane thing, or at least Cad Bane's the face guy of the band that is the worst band in the meta right now. But I also like the fact that we've got a Grief Karga data vault in a 74 player event.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That is pretty impressive. And then also you got Ahsoka Tano in there and a Luke. So heroic kind of punching back a little bit in this top eight, and maybe responsible for a large chunk of the percentage of heroic top 18 decks. Could be just from this one event here.
True.
Our next one is a 74. Oh, that's the same tab. Excuse me. As a 49 player event out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And this one, when I pulled it open, I was just like shook my head. I'm like, oh no,
Jeez.
like really, it's all Mando and all CAD. And 49
Yeah, that
players is
doesn't look like a fun event.
it sounds horrible. Like, did they have like a challenge where like if you only play CAD and Mando, you got like extra points at the end of your match or something? Because this is extremely lopsided. Nothing else breaking in but hard control and Cad Bane, either the red, black, blue, and I believe this one is kind of an exact copy where, yeah, it's very few cards that are not units. It's really an aggressive deck. The Ogdo Bogdo's in there. The split on the Rancors and the BT1s. Actually, they went with a 3 BT1. So a very aggressive deck. Not really a mid-range controlling Cad Bane. And then your Tempo Cad with Cad Bane Yellow, which everyone brings out to fight Cad Bane Blue, right?
Yes.
That's the kind
Although
of.
I do think Cat Blue is still better than Cat Yellow.
Oh yeah, I am definitely on that wagon right there with you. So Mandalorian, obviously, an attempt to fight back against Cad Bane. Um, but yeah, this is a very lopsided top 8 right here, and this definitely pushed the villainy percentage up with there being 5 Cad Banes in the top 8, and put one on top as well. So the finalists percentages for Cad Bane were definitely um, pushed up by this event. The next one that we're looking at is a 40 player in Wilmington. This is the one right across the border at Cape Fear Collectibles. Great group of people there at that shop. And this one is won by, and this is the one that alarmed me to what may need to be banned. Look at this Lando deck.
Is this the full control
The,
Lando build?
yeah, this is Controlville at its finest. I'm going to try to get everything captured in here in one screen. Okay, we got the events there. Yeah, I just got that in frame, but 68 cards to start with, in a Colossus deck that, to the best of my knowledge of looking over everything here, I don't see any clear draw engine built into this list. Let me just double check one thing about the Lando. Yeah, he doesn't
Oh,
draw a
it is
card.
just he doesn't draw, just ramps.
I had to double check, and maybe like, oh, if it's the color you pick, you put it in your hand or something broken even more like that. But you're like a Colossus deck just for big health. I still think Lando regular 30 base blue is potentially better, but this particular player, Trevor Holmes, has schooled us all. Math doesn't seem to matter at all uh, with 68 cards in the main. When you look at this list, what does it make you feel when you see 3 Previslas, 3 Chimeras, and 3 No Glory only results in a heroic deck?
I think they need to make some better heroic top end.
Yeah, it does one Liberty made it in, so at least something on the heroic side that's
True.
got a big booty made it. Um, I fear what they could come up with if they made better heroic cards for this leader to the drop on with the within color aspects. Uh, but yeah, it's got all the goodies and the Anakin Skywalkers on top of it, just to kind of like really abuse the villainy cards that are going into their discard pile. But 41 events, it makes me wonder, like, where they're just like, I'm just going to take all of the removal spells that are in these colors and all of the tempo granting like bounce spells and just throw them in the all together in this list because I can't make a decision, and I ended up with the 68 cards. Or are these the right numbers for the percentages on drawing these cards? What do you think of the amount of cards in this deck and the numbers with the events and units?
Well, if the guy was going to play 68 cards, in my opinion, he at least should have gone up one more card.
For
But
flavor
41
alone.
events, yeah, for flavor alone, exactly.
uh,
But 41 events and 68 cards in the main deck, that sounds ridiculous,
I
in my
wonder if they
opinion.
cut back to 2 direct hits because of that.
Now I understand like Mando playing this many cards because his leader ability is an active draw engine, but I fail to see how this can be consistent,
It does
especially in
kind
the
of,
early game.
yeah, it does seem. a little. It does look like you could take like a nebula ignition down and a hyperspace disaster down, uh, and just kind of like trim that event package a little bit down to closer to 50 cards, or at least
At
closer to
least to 60.
60,
Yeah.
right? Um, but yeah, and then like the sideboard, you got two liberties, so they get sick with it after the sideboard. And then they go as high as Annihilator, 13 for
Annihilator for
Annihilator.
13.
Is Lando's credit generation just that broken that we can go to 13 cost Annihilators? Appears
Well, I
so.
do think the current meta credit hate has gone away.
This is true. Yeah. Some Avars need to show back up, right?
Yes,
But yeah, this
yes.
list just made me scratch my head and like, are we in trouble? Does FFG need to step in, or do we just let this meta wheel kind of play its way out of this? And you know, there is no clear cut answer until something happens, right? Either to do nothing or do something. It's kind of a Schrodinger's cat kind of situation. But I do like the fact that you got some Ahsoka that made it. I am surprised that Ezra over Greaves is there. I felt like Greaves is a little better version of the same deck, but Ezra
I
making
agree.
it. What you feel?
Yeah, I agree. I do think generally Grief is a little better than Ezra, but Grief is a little bit more reactive, whereas the Ezra Yellow is I'm going to do my thing and try to go fast, and if you stumble, they win.
Yeah, yeah. And they're almost very similar decks. I mean, obviously there are some
Yes.
differences in the units they're picking, but their game plan is pretty much the same. Go base, right?
Mhm.
And then we got the Vader in there, a Cad Bane making it in. Cad Bane being 25% of the top eight here, and then a Mandalorian. Taking a look at this Mandalorian, they also did not go the direction of putting in villainy cards in the main or the sideboard. So, and still get, well, I guess I'm wrong. There's a single reactor ignition line there, three of them. So they did put some villainy cards in the list, um, in the Imperial Door Technician also. Maybe they just didn't get the memo that you can play Pre Vizsla and Chimeras and get away with it. Or they're
True.
saving it for next week as the meta evolves. But very interesting. It's still got that villainy aspects being played in a heroic deck to get there. Next, we're looking at what again looks like a very robust meta here. We've got 25% as Cad Bane. We had a Cad Bane finals, unfortunately. I'm sure that was a pretty interesting one to watch, though. And then Jump to Light Speed Luke, Jump to Light Speed Vader, Director Krennic, which also is using your Previslas and your Chimeras. Another Jump to Light Speed Luke. So the Luke Data Vault also taking up 25% of the top eight, which is pretty impressive. Lando Calrissian. Let's take a quick look at this and see if they went with the Chimeras. I see a Previsla there and three Chimeras. It's starting to feel like this three Chimeras is where you start building the deck, and then you go from there.
True.
But one that's pretty interesting is that Obi-Wan Blue Force. Um, is this supposed to be here? Is three Yellow Aces bombers enough space representation to make it in this current meta? I mean, what do you think about this Obi-Wan Force list we got here?
Yeah, it's an interesting version of Obi-Wan. Uh, let's see. Yeah, Obi-Wans are basically forced to play the 28-point base. You can't really play Virgin's Temple in a Cad Bane world.
Right, absolutely.
But it does look pretty standard Obi-Wan. You're just fighting for the ground.
Yeah, and it does look like
And
they basically took like Obi-Wan from the middle of last season and just swapped out the Yellow Aces bombers to be a little more
it
aggressive.
does use the Han Solo unit too, the one drop, which is pretty well positioned currently.
Right there. Yeah, that is really a strong unit. It impresses me every time. That's from that's Battle from Hoth.
Yes, I believe it's
Yeah,
from one of the starter sets, or uh, not from the packs.
I think it's from the intro battle for Hoth, but it's possible I could be wrong with that. But I think the only person I know in my area that has those cards that didn't buy them online um, had bought into the battle for Hoth intro set. But yeah, every time I play against that card, I'm like, I really want to spend like the almost $30 to get the base frames. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
it becomes a problem fast too. That card's gonna kill you.
yeah, it puts you on a clock for sure. You need to have an answer for that. But it's an interesting Obi-Wan list there in this particular one. Next up, Dedra um, taking this,
Actually, if
which
you want to go back to the last one, I thought it was interesting. The Krennic deck is actually playing a splash base.
yeah, that is. I'm glad you brought that up. Because it's got the chimeras, it's got the previslas, all of the things that are, kind of egregious right now in the meta. And then where is the splash required for this deck?
Yeah, looking through the list and seeing what they're actually splashing for.
Ray.
They're splashing for a single reactor ignition, looks like.
Oh, in the main, yeah, that's it. Um,
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know how I feel about that. I guess 2 life on your base is worth being able to play that card 2 turns earlier. And then they've got the Ray in the sideboard as well. They can, splash on that. But yeah, that's the card, the single reactor ignition. You are right. And outside of that, it's pretty much almost what you would see in uh, the blue red side. Oh boy, what is going on here? I got a bunch of
So it
noise.
looks like it's just a standard Krennic build, but you have the option to fall back to ramp into single reactor ignition, and
Yeah,
then you're probably flipping Krennic post ignition
and they
and
are
try to close
using
the game.
Moff Gideon with a squadron, Onyx Squadron Brute, and the Imperial Armor Commandos being some nice targets for that. Trash Walker bringing it all back. So if it gets the opportunity to get into the late game, it's going to probably overtake um, that board state. A couple craving powers and condemns to kind of hold certain
Get you
units
there.
at bay. But yeah, that's it's an interesting list. I'm glad you pointed that out. And this is one of the reasons why I was thinking like an errata where like they add green to Chimera, because I don't want to destroy something like this kind of deck. These blue green
Yeah.
um, villainy lists. But uh, Chimera is being played everywhere, right? Like all these decks. Like I don't have a good stat on like how much Chimera is being played in top eights, but it's an impressive amount of Chimera out there when the heroic decks are adopting it as a 3 of. The next one we got here is that, like I said, the Dedra. And here we see Aura Singh going red. So that's to bring in the ninth sister, right? And this is one that was brought up, I think, at the Colorado Cantina Crew um, video I was watching, where like, can Aura Singh just slip in as the new Cad Bane? There's some problems with that argument. She costs 1 more to flip, and um, she doesn't break shields, right?
Yes, correct.
So, what do you think? She's only playing one Chimera in this list. I think that's a trip. But what are your thoughts on Aura Singh? If Cad goes away, does Aura Singh become the de facto um, leader that can kind of do the same thing?
Orsing is definitely not as good as Cad Bane, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And Orsing, I think, is viable now, kind of, because people are trying to get around Cad Bing's ping by playing X1 shielded units. So Orasync just kind of feasts on those units slash decks. But with Cad Bane gone, I don't think people will run Leppies or droid laser turrets anymore.
Okay.
So her ability is not that good, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If Cad Bane goes away, then you are looking at a totally different meta where people aren't inclined to play one toughness units as much as they are right now. So I do like that take there. Um, the last one I have pulled up here. Well, I guess maybe then the next question is, what about Dedra? Is this a leader that can utilize all the same stuff as Cad Bane and punish people because of how powerful the red, blue, and black color combination is?
Let's see. Dedra. I do think Dedra and Mando are basically they're sharing like the same portion of the pie. They're the red blue, either hero or villainly control decks.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, that
This one
makes a lot
actually
of
looks
sense.
very unit heavy. This Dedra list in particular.
Yeah, I was noticing that, and I feel like that might be because you have 5 slots filled up with ninth sisters and previslas, which are removal spells on a stick, right?
But it's still playing low to the ground things like Owen, uh, Technician, Commando, Merrick's,
Yep.
and it looks like some anti-space stuff as well. Yeah, this I think this is a better version of the Cad Bane replacement than Aura Singh would be.
Yeah, it definitely taps into some of the same stuff, and may not even need as many events to do it. Um,
Yes.
it could go really heavy on creatures and push that way while still having units provide enough support in removing opponent units that it gets there. Um, the only thing
And
that
the
I can,
Dedra leader ability leads to your opponent making mistakes. Uh, she's very good at that.
I think the only disadvantage to Dedra when comparing it to Cat Bane is she costs 1 resource to activate her ability, right?
Yeah. So
So
you end up underdropping a lot.
yeah, exactly. So that'd be the one counter to that idea. But I think that you're probably right that if you take Cat out, the Dedra will probably rise to the top in that slot faster than Aura Singh would. The rest of this meta um, is pretty diverse. I mean, look down at the bottom there. We got a Han Solo green
Hmm.
making the list, which is wild. But I'm glad to see different heroic leaders making it in the top eights. This one had only 22 players, though, so we have to take kind of this results with a grain of salt, right? We're looking at almost half a third of the field right here that showed up.
Hmm.
So, and then the next one, 25 players. Uh, it was a Lando versus Cad Bane finals. We've got some Greaves Karga showing back up again. Lando Lake Country in there. A second Cad Bane. Boba Fett kind of slipping in there doing his thing. And then another Piet. Uh, Piet popping into some of these top eights. That's Piet with a splash base, too.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting.
let's take a look, see what they splashed for.
Well, it's a Piet red also. Most Piets are blue.
Yeah, I guess it's the Turbo Laser Salvo they splashed for.
Ye- No, they're probably splashing a
No,
blue card.
that's green. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking hyperspace disaster is what I was looking at.
They're splashing Chimera, most likely.
Yeah, there's Chimera right there. 3 of Chimera.
Yeah.
So
Which makes sense. That card's pretty good.
I heard it's all right. And yeah, that is kind of like our recap of what's going on in the world of the PQ as of last week. SWU meta stats. I didn't have it pulled up. Hopefully it'll load quickly for us. Um, is showing that CAD's got a 12%, almost 13% of the meta share, but win rates are 55.6% and a 7.6 conversion rate. Conversion rates feels maybe that's a little down, but that win rate is very impressive, right?
Yes, I do think so.
And then looking at you mentioned earlier Ahsoka Tano, um, she's 52% win rate. That doesn't seem to math right from what we just looked at. I didn't see half of the.
Well, there's probably just very few Ahsoka Tanos, and the ones that are there are the ones that are winning.
This is true. Okay, that makes sense. Um,
I think that deck is very good.
I do too.
So,
I do too. I think it was one of the most called interactions at the last chance qualifier. And I had interesting questions that were being asked of me as a judge. Like, I had one table I came to, and the player was asking the question, and this is what they said verbatim: um, "Does Ahsoka Tano's support give my Obi-Wan leader? Does it make it a leader?" And I repeated the question. I was like, "You're asking me if the support mechanic gives the trait leader to your Obi-Wan?" They're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "No, it doesn't do that." I did take a little extra time and explain, like, it gives the abilities that would normally be here on the card um, to that unit, but it doesn't give traits or other, um, traits of the card. And later on, we had a post huddle with the judges, and there was so many conversations about that interaction with the Naboo starfighter and it giving its abilities, to Ahsoka and that static line, and then those static abilities on Ahsoka now transferring to the support or supported attacking unit. That they reiterated it to the group of us, like this is how it works, you know. So I think there was a lot of confusion on maybe one how it worked, but even how to ask the question because when a person comes to me about a question on a game, I try to stay inside the barriers of what they've asked and not start, pontificating out further because I could then start swaying like, particular lines of play they might consider. So I felt like, I went home after that debriefing. And I'm like, did what I say cause this person to think that they don't get those abilities from the supported Ahsoka? Because if I said yes to that question, then they're getting the abilities from the Ahsoka plus it's a leader unit, right? So it gets like double the raid bonus in the one instance of Overwhelm, of course. But yeah, it was very interesting to hear how people were asking the questions, and um, there seemed to have been at least one situation where they were led to believe it didn't, the starship abilities that were on Ahsoka didn't transfer um, into the attacking unit for that's being supported. Um, the meta analysis. This is what I really wanted to look at. Where is the matrix? There we go. Real quick, Cad Bane absolutely dominating across the board. Even where there's yellow, he doesn't go below 50%. He only has a problem with Cad Bane yellow. Really, everything else is a close enough fight. It does look a little abusive when you're looking at that top line, right?
that's why Cad Bane's good. Even in his quote unquote bad matchups, I think personally they don't go below like 45, 55.
Yeah.
And with the correct sideboard, you can just match that back to 50-50 or maybe even in your favor.
And then the director Krennic I was talking about earlier, one of its worst matchups is against Cad Bane. The
Yes.
Mandalorian is not that bad, 48% plus, like you said, sideboard change, and you can kind of get there. But look at the rest of the green across that board. You move Cad Bane out of the list, and this guy is set free, right?
Yeah.
And then Ahsoka
Yeah.
Tano. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Krennic, as long as you're if the meta is filled with green, yellow, or anything that's not blue, Krennic is happy to see.
Absolutely. And then Ahsoka Tano, you mentioned it earlier. There's a significant amount of green in this bar. But it's showing that it has has a matchup that's not too bad into CAD. Now, not too bad, still below 50%, but um, she gobbles up Boba Fett, right?
Oh yeah.
And um, the other thing it's kind of telling is you go down this bar, how red it is against Cad Bane. Um,
Yeah.
it is really like there's some sunburn going on here. The meta was not
Mhm.
ready for the kind of shine that Cad Bane was going to bring. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about my observation here of the director Krennic. I do like what you're bringing up though, that against the world of blue, director Krennic is not as good as it is against non-vigilant uh, leader in base combinations. So that is a very good takeaway. I do appreciate that in our conversation. And with that, I want to ask a couple closing things. What do you think the future of the meta is moving forward for like the next like 2 to 3 weeks? And where do you plan on playing next?
I believe or well, let's see, the meta. If Cad Bane is still legal, we're just living in a Cad Bane world.
We're just material girls in a Cad Bane world.
Yes, sir.
And then I do agree with that. Do you see anything changing as far as like decks that have been in the meta or showing up in these top eights kind of falling out, or do you think things are going to kind of stay the same until there's some kind of change with Cad Bane? And if Cad Bane stays where it is, everything just kind of stays the same.
I could see a little rise in the Lando decks to kind of counter the Cad Bane. I think Lando is one of the best counters to Cad Bane, but it is also vulnerable to the other things that Cad Bane is beating.
So I got a question for you. Lando is a big credit go big deck, right?
Yes.
And Director Krennic is kind of the same. What do you
Yes.
feel is the Achilles tendon for Director Krennic against blue decks that Lando may not be facing, or is he facing the same problem?
I think Lando's credit generation is more consistent than Krennic's.
Okay.
And Krennic, a lot of the explosive Krennic plays is using the unit called Enoch,
Yep.
and Enoch hurts your base.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like riding that edge of turboing out a unit ahead of time with Krennic while hurting your base. And if they have an answer for that, you're just dying faster.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I didn't go the next level to consider the Enoch explosive turns
Hmm.
versus the consistency of Lando as well. So that's great. I'm glad I asked that question and got that insight from you. Where are
Oh
you going
yeah.
to be playing when it comes to the earning those PQ qualifying points?
We have two PQs in Atlanta, or the Metro Atlanta area. We have a limited PQ at Cards HQ that I will be at, and I think near the end of September there will be another one at Hawk's Nest.
Yeah,
And then
I missed the one in
I'll
Hawk.
likely travel to uh, the South Carolina or the North Carolina PQs as well.
So you're looking at August the 15th uh, in ATL. That's going to be the Cards HQ. Then the 26th of September is the Woodstock. That would be the other shop you mentioned in Georgia,
Hmm. Hawk's Nest.
Hawks Nest. Okay. And then you got the Greer August the 22nd, and then possibly either the Concord or the Durham in early September.
Yes, correct.
So the grind is on.
Oh yeah, it never stopped.
That's true. You got points to win. You got hotel rooms to win and flights to win, right?
True.
Yeah. I really do appreciate you taking the time to sit with me today. I know your time is very valuable, and we're pushing on right at an hour, but we've covered a lot of stuff. Do you have any final thoughts, or have we just basically covered everything and it's time to go have a coffee?
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And final thoughts: Swoo is great. Keep playing Swoo.
All right, I'm sending you a video camera, little clip-on one for the next time we get to talk. Okay.
Okay.
I want to have you. I want to have you in living color. Uh,
Yeah, I'll
yeah.
get a webcam for the next one.
You deserve it. You deserve it. But
Thank
yeah, I
you.
appreciate it so much. Thanks for being with us. Pass along our thanks to the network of players and the Bothan network as well. Anytime we get a chance to talk to one of their team members, it's an honor. And thanks for all the insights you've given us today. And there's been a lot. There's been a whole lot I've learned from sitting here talking with you. So I really do appreciate it.
Not a problem.
With that said, this is Jason with OTPG on to play games. And whether it's day or night, may the force be with you. And until next one, have a blessed one. Bye now.